Hello, passengers, and welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License with service to Everwood and Everwood, Colorado. We ask that you please fasten your headphones, secure your podcasting device, and remember that here at TV Pilot's License, we support all sorts of dreams, career aspirations, maybe a dream of achieving something great, or hey, maybe even a wet dream, but make sure that you're cleaning up after yourself.
Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Geoff Kerbis, joined by Max Singer. Max, how are you doing today?
Well, this town sure ain't big enough for the two of us doctors here, Jeff.
My gosh, well, Max, there's nothing greater than taking a little break from the city life and going out to the middle of nowhere, a town that once had the third largest chili cook-off in the world in Everwood. But before we dive too deep into this pilot and this WB classic, do you mind telling folks what this podcast is all about?
Everwood, Colorado, with its opera house and chili cook-off, what's not to love? Here at TV Pilot's License, we break down and analyze the pilot episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows. We learn more about how these shows came to be and were originally made, if they're effective pilot episodes and making us want to watch more, if they can be made today. Go back and stream our old episodes from wherever you listen to podcasts. Check us out on YouTube and TikTok to see our smiling faces. And if it is your first time flying with us, then welcome aboard.
Max, before we go to sponsor and before we even dive into Everwood, I genuinely have a question for you, which is when we were picking out the show this week, you mentioned, hey, Everwood, this looks like something for us. Do you have any familiarity with the show before we watched this pilot?
None whatsoever. I wanted to do something that was soapy and melodramatic, and I remember that there's like a young Chris Pratt in it, and that's really all I had. How about you?
Yeah, no, for myself, this is one of those things where it's like, it's one of those shows that you hear people talk about and you're like, oh, that's just like, that's a made up thing. Sort of like how people talk about that they actually watch The Big Bang Theory, where you're like, no, you don't. It's just, even though it's America's #1 show. So I was actually very excited to hear more and like see for myself what was the hype on Everwood.
This actually is when I officially stopped mixing up Everwood and Summerland. Those are kind of the same show in my brain.
Those are very much, one is beach, one is not beach. One is beach, one is mountain. I think that is how the studios even got them.
Yeah, summer and wood are like kind of how you separate those two in your brain.
Well, Max, before we dive too deep into Everwood, a quick word from our sponsor. Well, Max, let's go to Colorado. And let's start off with a quick synopsis. A widowed brain surgeon from Manhattan moves his 2 children to the small town of Everwood, Colorado, which that is absolutely what we watch, with maybe a few details and wait a minute moments left out. But can you tell the audience a little bit more about how this show got made?
Let's go to Colorado, a sentence every millennial has uttered at least once in their lives. Today, we are talking about the pilot episode of Everwood, which originally aired on September 16th, 2002 on the WB, and the show's creator, Greg Berlanti. We've talked about Berlanti once before on this podcast in our coverage of You. Go back into our archives for more on that Netflix series. Berlanti rose to prominence in the 90s as a writer and later executive producer on Dawson's Creek and its short-lived spinoff Young Americans. With family soaps like Dawson's Creek and Gilmore Girls succeeding, the WB looks to continue its dominance in this marketplace, searching for a teenage boy-driven pilot to add to their lineup. Pitching in-house, Berlanti gets the green light on a concept of a widowing father struggling to parent his piano prodigy son and his precocious sister. The team was lucky to land their first choice for the role of Dr. Andy Brown and Treat Williams, a star of Broadway and films since the late 70s, who I first got to know as the villain in the Billy Zane classic, The Phantom. While the rest of the show was filmed around Park City, Utah, the pilot was filmed in Calgary, Alberta. That's a different province of Canada than we usually film TV pilots from. The show was ordered to series to serve as a companion piece alongside Seventh Heaven and WB's lineup. Today's pilot is directed by Mark Pisnarski, known for his work on My So-Called Life, NYPD Blue, and later, Gossip Girl.
Well, Max, thanks for telling us a little bit about how the show got made. Let's dive in. And we're sort of on a streak right now of these shows that have these foreboding voiceovers that might be giving us a little bit of a clue of what's going to happen. But in this instance, we get a character who is not there on the day of why is today different, but instead is telling us what he knows about why is today different. And I want to hear from you. Was this refreshing, or did you just say, oh no, this is about to go poorly?
This narrator is too reliable. I need some real third-hand sources on this. I need this to be much more wild and fantastical. I was not expecting this to have almost a fairy tale voiceover to begin, and a very long voiceover exposition at that. But what do we know? We are not in Everwood, Colorado. We are in a very ritzy part of Manhattan, getting to know the Brown family. I am immediately drawn to Delia Brown, the daughter, because she's sitting at the breakfast table wearing a Knicks hat. And, it is still recent enough that I could say, listen, Delia, 2001, the team's just kind of been blown up. There's going to be some rough years ahead of you in your childhood, but hang on, it's going to get a lot better for you.
Max, when I say I'm looking at my notes and I say, I recognize that Knicks hat, that's Max's Knicks hat. Like, literally, I cannot swear enough. Like, Max owns that exact Knicks hat, and I knew he was engaged from the beginning of this show. Meanwhile, I'm looking at that brownstone that the Browns own, and I'm like, oh my God, how much money are we dealing with here, and how successful of a brain surgeon is our Dr. Brown?
I do feel like I've seen this opening 1,000 times, though, where it's the semi-chaotic family breakfast. The wife is telling the husband, you can't be late for the big recital. He's like, I don't know, honey, I've got work. And it's like, everyone needs something. The little girl is the precocious one. It's always the youngest one who has like the quick, snappy jokes. We're going to take cracks about the state of New Jersey in here, just shots at New Jersey for no reason. Dad is too important to be bothered with the family affairs. Like, we've seen all of this before, right?
Yeah, no, there's nothing new happening, right? Like, we have the teenager who's super angsty and you can tell doesn't really like his dad. And that's going to be something that we're falling into. Shout out to Gregory Smith, who plays Ephraim. The names of the children in the show are something that I would like to take notes on, because
Ephraim and Delia.
Boy, Ephraim and Delia, you must hate your children just like a little bit, or like really didn't want to have kids and said, well, they're going to be punished for existing. But Gregory Smith is someone that's fond to me because of the classic 1990s movie of Small Soldiers, which I don't know if you remember that, Max, but boy, do I. And that was a childhood hallmark moment for me. So seeing him be this just the worst type of teenager really just was like, all right, cool. Let's see what let's see what we're giving Greg as far as acting in this show. But it's not just angsty teens. It's not just the chaotic family moments. We get to see a little bit of not only the house and the show of, oh, there's wealth here, but see that Andrew Brown is a very good doctor. What did you think of getting that little bit of evidence and seeing how much of a workaholic Andrew was?
I mean, it's very evident that he's good at his job, and if you weren't aware, people tell you a lot. They make it such a big deal about how good of a neurosurgeon Dr. Andrew Brown is. There's been multiple newspaper and magazine pieces written about him. When our inciting incident finally occurs, there's an entire piece on Dr. Andrew Brown in Time magazine. Like, there's a level of celebrity that I don't think we see too often with this. Basically, he's like Ben Carson gifted hands. Like, there's going to be a Lifetime original movie about Dr. Andy Brown by the time this series ends.
Yeah, no, I was fully expecting, like, we get that, like, the image or the animation of, like, the whirling Time cover, and it's, like, Treat Williams on the cover of Time, and it says, like, the hands of God or something like that, based off of how they were talking about him. But, Max, today is a little bit different. I sort of alluded to it in our synopsis, but, Dr. Andrew Brown, working late, missing the piano recital, finds out in the hall of an apartment building that's supposed to be a hospital that his wife has suffered in a tragic accident and is no longer with us. And this sort of brings us to Everwood mysteriously at this point in time. But is that a good enough why is today different from you, or are you a monster?
Wife dying in a tragic crash. Yeah, that's enough of a why is today different. That's a pretty big inciting incident. I want to get your thoughts on a very interesting Treat Williams scene before we leave for
Sure.
Everwood, which is when we get a complete opposite side of the coin moment in treating this same patient from an earlier scene. Or earlier on, it's you're in good hands. I'm going to save your life. We're going to do this complicated surgery. And we see him again with the same patient ready on surgery day. And he tells him, if you could be anywhere in the world right now, where would you be? A very important question that we're going to come back to time and time again throughout this pilot. And the man says, Hershey, Pennsylvania, which I chuckled at first. And it's this realization of, I cannot save you. All I can do is extend your life by 8 to 10 months, he says, but you'll be in immense pain and recovery, and you won't actually enjoy this final year of your life. Go to Hershey, don't get the surgery, a crazy thing for a medical professional to say, but like go and live your life, be free, enjoy the time with loved ones while you have it. And we talk a lot in this podcast about like rounding out your character, seeing the other side of them. And I think it's fascinating how early on Dr. Brown flips, like how quick in this pilot he goes from being the like uptight, I work too late, I work too hard, into like give to your family, spend time with your loved ones, none of this matters, like live life to the fullest. It's a fascinating switch, and I want to know what you thought about getting it so quickly into this pilot.
Yeah, I appreciate that it was the scene that happened immediately after we found out that his wife was dead, if that makes sense. And they sort of allude to the idea that like time has passed in some shape or form. We don't know exactly how much, but it is, death and tragedy cause people to do things that are very out of character, out of norm, and in many instances snap out of a psychosis that we tend to put ourselves in, of daily routine and just like how we go about things, maybe falling in or out of love of our career. So at the moment in time, I was sort of like, okay, like I guess this makes sense. Especially I have a note in my notes, which is where they should be, where it says literally, does
A little peek behind the
Dr.
curtain.
Brown, yeah, a little peek behind the curtain. I don't put my notes anywhere else. But does Dr. Brown hate the medical system? Because the way that he talks about it, at least in this instance, might be a small clue to us about something that is going to be revealed later in this show. And I like the idea of giving us this small instance of like, hey, this is in a moment of grief, you have that thought and you decide, or that big life moment, you decide, all right, I'm going to change things up and I'm going to start evangelizing what I believe is the right thing to do in these moments.
Yeah, this is very soapy. It is very melodramatic, and there's a lot of WB hallmarks with it. But I am so glad that even in this dark moment, they didn't make Dr. Brown like totally curmudgeon-y and shut off from the world. There's a lot of very interesting mediations on grief that we'll get to as this pilot progresses, but to make this character trying so hard to see light in the world and to kind of lead with this optimism when faced with the worst thing that could possibly happen to him is a very strong character choice, and it's going to determine a lot of the things that Dr. Brown, Andy, does in this pilot. And I think it's just so much more interesting to watch than somebody who is trying to dig themselves out of the hole to just kind of skip ahead and see where they're at and allow them to be kind of this like shining beacon that represents the good in humanity, even if that does feel very TV.
Yeah, it feels very TV, but I'm going to give the small accolade of it feels earned based off of how they write at this point in time. Because if they were really like almost, you mentioned Hallmark, I mentioned Hallmark, but if they were Hallmark movieing it up, right, with like the dialogue where you're just like, brother, what the fuck is happening right now? Like none of this was earned. I'd be like, I don't need this right now. But this as an approach to the initial stages of grief, as well as some of the other things that we're going to see Dr. Brown deal with, I was like, all right, interesting. But I want to take us to, we have the transition. We are told, hey, they are moving to Everwood, Colorado. We get all of the highlights, right? There's an opera house. There's a chili cook-off. There used to be a train. But Max, I have a bigger question that is on the back of my mind. And that is, we find out that Delia is no longer a fan of the Mets or maybe even the Yankees. I think she probably would have been a Yankees fan. But I have to ask you, in the current day, how long would it take you if you lived in Colorado to become a Rockies fan and give up on the Mets? Because I don't think it's going to be better.
No, I mean, listen, I could very easily give up on the Jets. That's a no-brainer right there. But listen, Delia, you gotta hold on to that. Like, you've got to absolutely hold on to your morals here. It's going to be a rocky road, but trust me, hold on to the Mets. Hold on to it. Although I do love the Rockies colors. I love that hat. It's a great hat. I would probably get the hat. I would definitely get the hat.
Yeah, the hat's great. The hat's great. But it's our first day of adjusting to life in Everwood. They've seemingly moved without any sort of debate. There's the promise of a horse, which I did really like that little, like, it's a democratic system, and maybe the poke and jab at the idea of lobbyists in this instance. But we're seeing the first day of a new life. And I'm curious, what are your takeaways of this first day? Not only that we get to see through the eyes of Dr. Brown, but we get to see through his kids as well as they're adjusting.
Yeah, Ephraim, if you think your dad tried to buy your sister off with the horse is bad, you're going to hate Citizens United in a few years. I really appreciate that we get everyone's first days. And I also just appreciate that the children are important in this. They are important to the story, and everyone's journey carries equal weight. Delia being nervous to get on the bus to go to school carries the same weight as the high schooler trying to fit in a much more rural crowd, which carries the same weight as the father trying to figure out the next steps in his life and career. And when you treat all of those things as serious and meaningful, you get good emotional depth out of it. I think that the children's plot lines are written very well. I think that they act very much like their ages. I never felt like there were 40-year-olds writing either of the children in this. And I was definitely interested in learning more about their stories. I think Delia and Mr. Irv, the bus driver, is a very fascinating...
Who's our narrator?
Who we learn is our narrator. A very, very fun, like, mentor-mentee kind of relationship in a way, one that I'm very excited to explore.
Yeah, and then on the other side, we have to follow our angsty teen who I have a genuine question. Did you notice that his hair was dyed? Because it took me about like 2 minutes and the joke to be like, oh, I guess he shaded his hair a light color of purple in addition to the amount of brown that he did.
We were all doing that in 2001, 2002. Who amongst us wasn't getting the hair gel that made your tips blue? It's not that weird for the time. All of these Colorado kids are acting shocked that he has any color in his hair. Every single one of them would have been doing that in real life.
Yeah, I mean, there also is, this is a moment where I joked with you before we started recording and to take a peek behind the curtain. I mentioned I think this show had 2 to 3 different writing rooms because suddenly the show decided it wanted to be Gilmore Girls with this witty dialogue that and these walk-in talks that we get in this high school with not only Ephraim, but also we get Emily Van Camp showing up as Amy, who we will not disclose her last name quite yet, but this little scene where they're talking like 40-year-old singles is it's so out of nowhere, but at the same time, it does establish, hey, here's the high school universe of this family drama that we're watching.
Yeah, I think when you make Ephraim the city kid fish out of water, you have to find one person that you can pair him with. And I think Van Camp she's very clever in her line deliveries. I think that she's very sharp for being such a young actress at this point. We also get one other famous face in our high school scenes, also of the Marvel universe, babyface Chris Pratt in the role of Bright, setting up for one of the best jokes in this pilot. Last name disclosed for now. What do we think of our two future Marvel Cinematic Universe leads in high school? What are our thoughts on both of them, Geoff?
Yeah, I mean, I actually really enjoyed Emily Van Camp's performance as Amy. I thought it was a good, like, oh, this is the, because in every single high school TV show you ever watch, every single high school movie you watch, there's the one kid who decides, I am going to welcome this new person in. It is a requirement because otherwise that'd be a very, very boring TV show if it was just one person angstily going around the halls of their high school. But on the other side of the coin with Chris Pratt, God bless him. I think that Chris Pratt might have been just relying on his own experiences in high school at this moment in time when he was performing the role, but they very much gave him just the position of brother who's quote unquote protective, but also a dick at this moment. So there's not much, but I'm hoping to learn more about Bright. And I agree with you. The joke about Bright being his name and that being ironic was one of the better jokes in this show and one that made me guffaw. The other one that I skipped over was the neighbor's kid saying, when being called, you're not a plant, and he just says, I'm a boy. I was like, you know what? That's great line delivery by like a 5-year-old. So like A+ to you, and you made your day rate for sure. But Max, it's not just about the children. Dr. Brown is setting up a new life, and he wants to practice in a town that already has a town doctor. What do you think about this storyline of maybe setting up anew, and you have a rival who seems to be a little bit of a piece of work?
I think this is a very fascinating rivalry that they set up with Dr. Abbott, the second generation town physician, and Andy's just lack of caring for any of Dr. Abbott's complaints about him setting up shop. I think it is fun, and when we learn what Andy's true motivations are, it becomes even clearer the form like this rivalry is going to take over this season and perhaps even this series. And what I really appreciate is that they never give away the ghost with Dr. Brown. Like, there's a lot of motivations that are done, things that he feels compelled to do, whether it's, I don't want to be in this like strip mall office. I want to build it in this decommissioned train station. And he's hell-bent on that. And we don't know why. There's a lot of keeping you tuned in to figure out why he's doing the things that he does that I think are very fascinating. I also love that he basically moved to this town and turned into an Eddie Bauer catalog. Like his wardrobe is all of a sudden shearling jackets and vests and flannel plaid shirts and jeans and boots. He's got a beard after probably shaving every single day of his life for 20 plus years. I love how quickly he just cosplays Mountain Man and does it so well. This is absolutely like an Eddie Bauer LL Bean catalog come to life.
Yeah, I mean, I was cracking up and like literally being like, oh yeah, this is like the guys who cosplay that they're cowboys when they visit like Jackson Hole and like Vale and suddenly have to wear cowboy boots and cowboy hats, even though, hey, brother, we know you drive a Range Rover and you have not worn in those boots, so you're going to have some big old blisters on the back of those heels. But I want to talk about, as we're starting to see the roots being put down in Everwood, right, by Dr. Brown and reluctantly his children, there is two different versions of dreaming that we see happen in front of us. And let's start off with the one that I think is on my mind the most, which is there's a wet dream joke in this show that revolves around manga, making out, and what's a good makeout song. And Max, did this feel really like a out of place? Where the fuck did that come from to you, as it did to me? Or did you like this attempt at humor and edginess on the WB?
Started cracking up when I realized this was going to be a dream sequence, because at first my thought is, oh no, not a white kid explaining manga, like not this. And as we realize what this is and how absurd Ephraim's dream is, from the makeout song conversation to the ways of talking risque that they for worse put on to Emily Van Camp, I was cracking up. And I think that it's also telling that this show has the confidence to throw in this kind of non-linear storytelling, where it's like, we're going to use dream sequences in a variety of ways in this pilot to tell our story and reveal information. And yes, to end it with the button of the realization that it is a wet dream must have sent a shiver down the spine of everyone who was a producer on Seventh Heaven, who realized this was the show they were going to be paired with for the next year.
Seventh Heaven, which we still to this day I would argue is like a top 5 horniest show that we've ever done on this pilot. Like, yeah, this was something out of left field. But let's talk about the dreams of Dr. Brown, which are these almost interesting. I'm curious if you caught it, because at first we get this first dream sequence where we're set up to believe almost that it is a flashback in time of a conversation that happened in the past, maybe when they were back in New York with his wife. And then just to be told and see through the eyes of his child that, hey, he is just talking to no one right now. He's reliving these conversations in the current day. What do you think of this as a technique? And what do you think of this as maybe a plot point or a dramatic?
When I said there's going to be some really interesting like mediations on grief, this is 100% what I was referring to. I love these sequences where Andy and his wife, Julia Brown, his deceased wife, have these recreations of conversations from the past, but with him and his present Everwood version. I think they're interesting ways to give the audience tidbits of information in a way that feels very honest and earned. I think that when we get our second major conversation and use it to reveal why Everwood, that's a fascinating way to get all of that exposition out of the way in a situation that feels very creative, and to cut to the children seeing it and knowing about it. This is not something in secret. This is not in his head. This is him dealing with grief out in the open, and the children not knowing how to react. To see a parent struggling in their own way too is a very tough thing, because you need them there for you, and to know that they're also going through hardship has to be tough for these two kids. I also would love to know your thoughts on Brenda Strong going from playing one dead woman immediately into Mary Alice on Desperate Housewives, where it's like, great, am I alive in this series? Sorry, Brenda.
I've never seen this. Is like, you hear about actors and actresses complaining about being shoehorned into role types, and I feel like Brenda Strong is just, it's 2001. She's filming this pilot. Show comes out 2002. She's like, I'm a regular, but I'm dead. So hopefully I can book something new. And then she gets the script for Desperate Housewives, and they're like, and keep in mind, she was not the original choice for her character in the original version of that pilot, right? And she's like, oh, I get to be on Desperate Housewives? Do I get to not be dead? And it's like, nope, it is critical, dude, that you are so dead and you're narrating from your deathbed.
Well, but if you're writing a TV drama in the 2000s and you need a dead wife, you pick up that phone and you call Brenda Strong's agent right away.
Yeah, I mean, Brenda Strong, this is not me hating on you. I would love to have your career if I could have one, just being the dead spouse on multiple shows.
It's a hilarious archetype to get boxed into, though. Absolutely.
Well, Max, I do want to bring us back to the medicine of it all in this show, because there are two major reveals in this show as to maybe why we're in Everwood, Colorado. And the first being, why set up a competing practice against Dr. Abbott, who appears to be a dick, just generally. But the idea of, hey, I'm starting a practice that I am not going to charge you a single dollar for any form of medical procedure or check-in or checkup. My doors are open to everyone and anyone. What do you think about this? Because this is sort of being, this is maybe the why of Everwood. What do you think, and what were your thoughts when you were watching?
I think the altruism can also very easily be misconstrued as corny. Like, this is where we start to get into very WB soap family values territory. But I also think that to set up the rivalry with Dr. Abbott, it is an important way for Andy to distinguish himself. He is the all-American hunk, the celebrity neurosurgeon who is doing all of this work out of the kindness in his heart, versus the angry, scrawny, weaselly Dr. Abbott who seems to not care about his patients. He is comically bad with bedside manner against the people that frequent his practice. And it shows that whatever has drawn Andy to Everwood is truly so far from his Park Avenue life of New York City, that he is here to do good, to fulfill some sort of promise to his wife, to just make good in a community, not needing anything in return. And I think it sets up that the people he works with are going to be people that truly need him, and you're going to just be able to basically constantly make Treat Williams be this all-American hero dad in this TV show as it goes on.
Yeah, it is the patent pending on this term and copyright pending on this term, but the Jesus Christification of a character where you're like, oh, so this is the best guy, and he doesn't have everything figured out, but he's trying to help as much as he can in these instances. And while he might be a great doctor and might be doing something that is, as you mentioned, very altruistic, there is the other side of the situation, which is his kids don't have it figured out. And we find out that one of his kids, Ephraim specifically, not only gets in a fight, but gets in a fight with the children of Dr. Brown's biggest rival, Dr. Abbott. Did you like this reveal? Did you need it in the pilot?
Yes and yes. I think that it is important to tie this together. I think that you need to have a heightened sense of stakes to it. I appreciate that every single character we meet gets tied into everyone else's life. There is no one in our ensemble who is not connected to everyone else in 3 different degrees, and that is funny. It is silly, it is campy, it is soapy, but I love how intertwined the entire ensemble within this community is. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, if it's supposed to be this small town, right, we're informed later it's about 4-hour drive to Denver sort of thing. So we're in the middle of the Rocky Mountains, where there are not many roads. There's not even a train, right? That we are promptly informed there's no train anymore. Otherwise,
it's very important that there's no train. We need you to be so aware that there is not a train in this town.
That, I was I fully expected it, because I did find it interesting. There's that little small clue at the beginning where you're like, why is she only giving her first name? Because people have first and last names. And normally if you're that precocious as a 15-year-old, you're going to be like, oh yeah, I'm Emily Abbott or Amy Abbott in this instance. Instead, she's just like, I'm Amy. No last name. She's Prince or Seal or Rihanna. And I'm like, that last name's going to come in handy pretty soon. And I like that, but I do like the reason that she didn't reveal anything is we get the ulterior motive of trying to befriend Ephraim, which is, hey, this girl we learn has a boyfriend who has been in a coma, and she's hoping that Dr. Brown, this world-class neurosurgeon that she seems to know everything about, is willing to help out her boyfriend who is comatose.
And here is the moment where it got a little too soapy for me. That
you
Emily,
can't have a soap opera without a coma.
That this high school girl reads Time magazine to start, learns that this world-renowned neurosurgeon is going to be moving to her small town of 900 people, instantly knows who his son is. I'm not even sure how she figured that out unless the entire family was in this photo and she clocked him immediately. Befriends him, leads him on to basically introduce him to her coma boyfriend, hoping that his father can save his life and take him out of the coma. This is where we start getting into deep soap opera territory.
Well, Max, I want to one-up the soap opera territory of this show. Because not only do we have the big fight where between Ephraim and between Dr. Brown, where they're screaming at each other in front of their own house, which is, I will say, that is the biggest acting that we see, where we're just like, all right, you two, go and scream at each other and hopefully, make up at the end. But we also get the reveal of why Everwood, Colorado, with another one of these dream sequences. And I want to hear from you. What did you think of this moment? Was it extremely soapy for you, or do you think it was necessary to get the reveal in episode 1?
I think it's important in episode 1. We need to know why we're here. We've been teasing so many questions, like so many strings that are leading to places, that I do think that in your pilot you need to establish why Everwood. You need to really ground that and make it clear. And I think that these two sequences with Treat Williams are both really well done. I really love his acting, sitting on the couch, getting the reveal of what Everwood means to his wife, this town that she stopped in once on a train in a snowstorm, and she fell in love with it. She called it her heaven on earth. The idea of him basically going to heaven to find his wife is the most WB statement I'll make today. But I do think it gives meaning and given circumstances to why Andy does what he does. And I also really love the sequence before, the all is lost blowout with his son in the driveway. And what I especially love is that it so effortlessly sequences for Treat Williams from the way he says, like, oh, like, you think my beard is bad, into the escalation of it, into like, well, I wish I died too. Mm-hmm. And it just so effortlessly and gradually builds up that I was like, oh, like, you're really good at this. Like, you're really good at this TV melodrama. And I never felt like he was over the top. I never felt like any behavior is unwarranted. It just was such a slow build that by the time we got to that gut punch of a line, like, you realize the ride you've gone on. And then to come down with that catharsis of him sitting with his deceased wife, it's like, okay, like, there's emotional stakes. You are not just Mr. Happy-go-lucky. You have not just pushed forward for some reasons that are unbeknownst to us. Like, you are struggling. You are suffering. You are grieving. And there's going to be a lot that we're going to get to watch Andy process throughout this show as well.
Yeah. I will say about the argument that we get to see and the big choice acting, I think it's one of my favorite arguments I've seen on television because it seemed the most realistic. Because arguing is not logical most of the time, especially between a parent and a child. It is extremely emotional, and you are just trying to take the biggest hit that you can, especially when you're a parent and you've reached the end of the line, right? And I sort of watched that on screen, and I've been like, oh, I've seen those arguments. I've participated in those arguments, right? And like that was a moment where I was like, all right, we got some form of accuracy here, but then this conversation with your wife, this one-time conversation that left such an imprint on you that you changed during your grieving, decided to change your children's life, change your entire life just because of one conversation, is something that I'm going to be honest. The first time I saw it, I literally was like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, you're telling me one conversation had that big of an impact? But as I've sat with this show, I've been like, you know what? When you're grieving, you do drastic things. You make drastic choices for your life. And this one makes sense to me based off of one single conversation. And we're going to actually talk about that a little bit because we got an in-flight question about it. But any thoughts there?
There's a little part of me, though, that believes that at some point in the show, Treat Williams is going to come riding into town conducting a locomotive. Like, I brought the train back, Julia. I brought the train back for you.
Oh, I thought you were going to go music band and he's going to be wearing the full band lead uniform and 76 trombones. But, Max, we do get the end of this pilot. We get one more. We get some of the worst miming of playing a piano I've ever seen in my life.
No, don't move on from this. We got to keep talking about it. Don't you dare move on from the piano playing outro of this episode.
We get the reconciliation, and I need to hear from you. Gregory Smith is supposed to be a piano prodigy in this show as Ephraim. What do you think of his miming of the piano? Because I literally was just like, you didn't need to show it. You could have just showed him from the shoulders up.
Why did you frame the camera there is my only question. Why did you position the camera in a way that's going to show him from his side profile with his hands in that middle third? Why would you put your camera there to watch him basically marionette puppet piano keys? All you had to do was show him from higher up. All you had to do was frame him from behind and then dub in the piano. Out of all the places you could have put your camera, why did you pick that angle?
Yeah, they specifically chose, for those who are into camera angles, they chose a cowboy shot, which is that's wild to do if someone's not actually going to play the piano. And his hands didn't match up with anything that he was doing as a piano player myself, that I was just like, we didn't need to set this boy up for this fall, because if he's going to play piano at any point in the rest of the series, I really hope they make some better choices as to how to film it. But it is the pilot. We're learning here. Greg Berlanti, you're looking at this shot and being like, we can never do that again, most likely.
Yeah, there's when you have a set of data, you have an outlier that's so off, you just have to toss it before you evaluate everything else. That's how I feel about the piano playing in this pilot, where it's I just need to take it and I need to throw it out because I cannot let it influence the rest of my thoughts on whether or not I would want to watch more of this show. It's bad. It's that low. It has to go.
But I am curious, since we have talked extensively about the piano, we get the narration one last time. We get the narration from Irv, the bus driver, about, hey, this is one of the days, but it is setting up the idea that there's more to follow that Irv specifically got to participate in. And do you like that as an ending? Did you need that narration? Was it a nice, palate cleanser after seeing some terrible piano mimicry?
It does kind of make me wonder how this entire series ends, that Irv feels like he has to tell this story. Is there tragedy that's going to befall all of the Browns? Is there a happy ending? Did something occur to Everwood that they had to save? Was the train brought back? I don't know, but either the greatest story that's ever been told is going to unfurl in this show's seasons, or something so horrible is going to happen that Irv feels the need to recount it.
Yeah, no, the train does come back and tragedy does occur. But Max,
All
that is
900 people in the town were hit by the train. The entire town was hit by the train.
it was actually Train Dog ran through every single person in the town. Max, you're looking at me like you don't know what Train Dog is, and I want you to go and look that up on your own time. Because
I was thinking like the Coors Light Silver Bullet Express train.
Yeah, no, you did used to have a stand-up joke about the Coors Light Silver Bullet train that
Had some real classics back in the day.
Yeah, you had some great ones. But Max, that is our pilot. But I want to hear a little bit about things that you loved about the show. Were there any things that you'd like to give a little bit more shine to, based off of this pilot?
Yeah, I need to give a redemption to the director of photography because there is one camera sequence that I love in this pilot, and that is much earlier on when the wife has died and we're in the home in New York still, and we have a single locked cam that is slowly zooming in, slowly, and the room that we're focused on keeps changing, but the camera stays locked. And we just see these kind of silhouettes and semi-distant shots of people processing grief in their own way, from pacing, lying on beds, sitting down, and the frame we see stays still. The rooms keep changing in and out. And I thought that was a really powerful way to show the passing of time, to show the grieving process, to show how every member of the Brown family was dealing with this tragedy. And the DP did so well with that shot that I am almost willing to forgive the piano playing sequence at the end of this pilot.
Yeah, for myself, I want to give a couple of shout outs. I really loved Deborah Mooney's performance as Edna Harper in this show, as this, nurse who turns out to be the mother of our dear Dr. Harold Abbott. And then also Stephanie Nisnik as Nina Feeney, the next door neighbor, because I thought it was such an interesting choice to introduce this female character and then very quickly say, hey, this is not a love interest. This is a neighbor. Don't do that. Don't pair these two people up. Don't pair this grieving man with this woman. This is truly just going to be platonic. And they had a very nice scene together about the idea of being so in love with your partner that it was a nice moment in this pilot that I was very, very fond of. What about wait a minute moments, Max? What about things that cause you pause in this pilot? You got to have one, so I need to hear about it.
I mean, if anything, it's that there are so many like hallmarky tropes rolled into one. It's not just the I'm going to tell you a story about Dr. Andy Brown and his relationship to this small mountain town in Colorado. It's not just I'm going to have dream sequences. It's not just we've got the dead wife who communicates with the husband. It's like, it's all of it. It's so much. There are so many soapy calling cards rolled into one. Like any single one of those might be like, oh, this is an interesting little way to add to the story. But there are so many of them. There is just a plethora of storytelling tropes that we see from these melodramas, and they hit you with every single one of them in Everwood. For a split second, I almost called it Deadwood. I've referred to the show as Summerland, Deadwood, and Everwood. I'm having a hard time.
Yeah, for myself, there is a lingering concern in the back of my brain that Dr. Abbott may or may not have a brain tumor, because there are multiple instances or pieces of evidence that I would like to present to you, Max. First, the scene where he just mentions that he smells his wife's perfume that has been discontinued and then leads him to the train station. Little bit of a okay, like I was expecting to meet someone, like to maybe meet someone who's like this happenstance or like this, oh, this person was destined to meet them and they happen to wear the perfume. Then we get these two dream sequences where he is seemingly awake and seeing his wife and having conversations. That also is concerning. And then the third, the thing that was presented to us first was the idea of sometimes people do worry about brain tumors pressing against portions of your brain when you make big life-changing decisions like moving to the middle of nowhere, Colorado. So if you know if Dr. Everwood has a brain tumor as one of the leading
Everwood.
or Dr. Brown has a brain tumor as being one of
No,
the
no, no.
leading
Dr.
experts,
Everwood. Dr.
he is Dr.
Everwood.
Everwood. Dr. Abbott would have some complaints about that as well. But I truly do think there might be a brain tumor scenario in this show, and who knows? Maybe we'll find out if we watch
Season
more.
4, he has to operate on his own brain.
Yeah, he's fully awake. But we do have one more question, Max. This in-flight question came to us via Instagram from Mary Kate in LA. And Mary Kate asked just a very simple 4-word question. What is your Everwood? So there's a couple of options that I'm going to present to you, which is your Everwood could be, hey, this is my idea of heaven on earth. I want to give you that opportunity. Or you can do the funnier thing, which is, what is the place you and your spouse have talked about one time, and that's where you have to move based off of one conversation. So I'll let you make that decision.
So I think if I was going to do this, if I was going to pitch what my Everwood is, I would have to say like Central Coast of California, like Santa Barbara County.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a place to be that it is beautiful, it is serene, it is coastal, it's a little bit quieter. There's so many little towns in there that are truly one road, like one road little towns in the Santa Ynez Valley. And I think to go there and to just have like a simple artisan shop, I don't know, maybe I get really good at baking bread or something like that. Like that would be my Everwood. It's a little tiny, off the main drag Santa Ynez Valley town in the Central Coast of California.
Love that you chose the sentimental answer, because I will choose the comedic one, which is Alexandria, Kentucky. Yes, if you are familiar with Alexandria, Kentucky, let me enlighten you. It is a couple stops on the highway away from the Corvette Museum that is also located in Kentucky. So that's a big plus. You got something to do. You're not too far away from the Speedway that is located in Kentucky as well. That is one of the best road trip exits I have ever visited, because there is every type of fast food establishment that you would ever want. Real estate's really cheap. You can be an expert at whatever field you want. And Max, you might be wondering, how do I know so much about Alexandria, Kentucky, which is very different than Alexandria, Virginia. I have driven past it no less than 35 times in my life, going on road trips between Indiana or Cincinnati and Nashville, Tennessee to visit my in-laws. So highly recommend, if you're looking for a place in Kentucky to live, that might be it.
Follow-up question. When you said it's by the Speedway, do you mean a legitimate motor speedway or a speedway gas station?
I mean both. So, hey, brother, you get ready and you have some fun with that, because we're moving to Alexandria, Kentucky. But MK, thank you so much for that in-flight question. If you want to be like MK and submit your in-flight question, make sure to follow us on Instagram. We put that call every week. But maybe you have one off the top of your head or a suggestion for our podcast. You can submit those at tvpilotslicense.com or shoot us a text and leave us a voicemail at 213-290-1713. Before we talk a little bit about the history of Everwood, a quick word from our sponsor. Well, Max, let's wrap this up and talk a little bit about the history of this show. This show had 4 seasons and 89 episodes, but the show was subsequently canceled in 2006 during the merger of WB and UPN, because the CW network, as they were consolidating programming, was deciding what shows should they keep and kill. And they looked at that family drama category, and this is from a quote from a Variety article, and said that, hey, we've chosen to retain Seventh Heaven over Everwood as our returning family drama, because the executives felt that that series skewed towards a younger audience as opposed to Everwood demographics wise, which I found pretty interesting myself. let's talk a little bit about ratings that might have influenced that decision as well. This show started on Mondays at 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central, and was the number 124 ranked program out of all TV, which for cable, not too surprising to hear that. But it was the number 3 out of all of the original TV shows that were on WB, which pretty good for an opening series. And then the show got all the way up. It also averaged about 4.8 million viewers. Show peaked at number 109, but by the 4th season, the show got the fun experience of having 4 different time slots. They moved it from Monday to Thursday for some reason, and then they switched it back and forth on Mondays between like, no, it's going to start at 8. No, it's going to start at 9. And then one time it started at 7, which I was just like, what are the decision and the choices that we're making here? But the show dropped off to about 3.6 million viewers by its final season. Yep, you can find this on DVD. I bet there are some people out there that have the DVDs, but if you want to watch this show on streaming, it is on Amazon Prime. Let's talk a little bit about nominations and awards. This show had 38 nominations and 3 wins, but I want to talk about the nominations because this show had 2 Primetime Emmy noms, including 1 for a guest appearance by James Earl Jones. What episode number is that? I would like to watch. This show also has 2 satellite noms, a few SAG noms, a Critics Association nom, and 14 Teen Choice Award nominations, but we're in the mountains, baby. There's no surfing and no awards here. But Max, that is the history of this show. And our flight is starting to come to a land. So I have 2 questions for you. And the first is based off of the pilot and the pilot alone. Are you going to take another visit to Everwood? Are you going to watch more of this show? And the second question is, we don't really talk about family dramas too much on this podcast, but they like sort of exist. Do you think something like Everwood should be more prominently on the air, whether that's streaming or primetime networks? Or, hey, maybe this is a show and a concept of the past that we should leave there.
I'm feeling snacky and I need a little treat Williams that is, and I will definitely watch more of Everwood for his performance alone. Dr. Andy Brown, I think, is one of the best TV dads we've covered in a pilot on this show. I love the performance that he gives. It is nuanced, it is deep, it is emotional, it is grounded, and for him and him alone, I would want to watch a second episode. As for your second question, I think this is a genre that continues to give. I think shows like this paved the way for This Is Us, for Brothers and Sisters, for Parenthood, for all of these shows that cover family drama, these kind of primetime soaps that aren't Dallas and things like that. And I think that this genre always finds an audience. And I think that it's something that we will continue to see. I think it's shifted its way from just being on like WB into being something that can hold its own on like an ABC or an NBC. And yeah, I definitely look forward to seeing more shows in this vein.
Yeah, and for myself, I did not know how I was going to answer this question going into this podcast. I got to be completely honest, but the more I've thought about it, the more I think I will be also visiting Everwood by car, not by train. But as far as the second question, as long as there's going to be families, right? As long as there are families, there is going to be family drama, and there's going to be networks that want to talk about that family drama. Now, some of them skew a little bit younger, right? Some of them skew towards that teenage focused drama where it's more about the kids than about the families themselves. Some of them skew older, where we're talking about like adult children, very similar to Parenthood, which you mentioned. But I think that there is a place. It just has to be tell a story, and sure, you can recap things that we see on every single one, but there is an opportunity there to also have a little bit of a new perspective and tell stories of new families that do exist to this day.
I think you and I are both finding ourselves very engrossed in something that fits into the former that you mentioned. Yep.
Yeah. Nope. I think we are very engrossed, and we're waiting for maybe next summer a certain movie that we can both turn pretty to.
Full recap podcast coming next year?
Yeah, maybe. Hey, if you want a full recap podcast leading up to that movie, I think Max and I would both be willing to do the Summer I Turned podcast very, very soon. But Max, that is our flight of Everwood. But before we go, I want to make sure that folks can find you wherever you want to be found. So, Max, where can folks find you?
You could find me winning the Everwood, Colorado Chili Cook-Off and on all things social media at Maxwell Singh.
And you can find me dreaming with my eyes open. But if you're looking for me on social media, you can find me at Run Geoff Run. If you're looking for the TV Pilot's License, you can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. Make sure to rate, subscribe, leave a comment. It does really help us out, and we have y'all to thank for us being able to add advertising into the podcast. It does help out the pod. If you have a question for the show, maybe an in-flight question like MK, make sure to submit those on our Instagram, tvpilotslicense.com, or leave us a text or shoot us a voicemail at 213-290-1713. Watch out for some of the stuff that we have coming up. We love to give previews of that when we can, but with the plane landed and the seatbelt sign off, we look forward to flying the bright skies of the TV world with you again soon. Until next time, keep your eyes on the skies and your fingers on the dial.